You are going to die, Nomad soul. You shall spend all eternity in hell. Come, Nomad soul. I want to taste your soul.
Hello. Now, you may be wondering what the hell I just showed you, and ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you Omikron, the Nomad Soul. Let me give you just a bit of context behind this game before I really go into it. The reason I even know it exists in the first place is because one of my friends bought it for me. This same friend saw that Omikron was on sale for $1 and proceeded to buy so many copies that Steam temporarily shut down his account because they thought it was a bot. And he gave these copies to everyone he knew. So, that could mean of one of two things. This is a complete, utter trash heap, the likes of which no one has ever seen. Or maybe this is a long-forgotten classic, a game just waiting for a modern revival to bring its innovative gameplay that was ahead of its time.
Go and interrogate this prisoner, and let me have your report as soon as you've finished. You'll find all the information you need in the folder, along with your mission orders to get into the cell. Dismissed.
Oh boy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me regale you with the batshit insanity that is this game. Now, when you first open up the game, you're going to be greeted by this cutscene, which was just an advertisement that they placed at the beginning of the game. Not gonna lie, it's kind of interesting. The music's energetic. You see all of these environments and your character running through them. But, you know, with that, let's start up the game with an appropriately named character. And let's press start.
I have many things to tell you, and very little time. My name is Kale. I come from a universe parallel to yours. My world needs your help. You're the only one who can save us. I succeeded in opening a breach between my world and yours. Through your computer, you can enter our world and help us. But in order to do this, you must transfer your soul into my body. Do you accept? Press any key to say yes. But hurry, there isn't much time.
As you can see, you're basically immediately thrown into the thick of things as Kale, yes, like the vegetable, asks you to come save his world. However, the game acknowledges that the player is using a computer to do this, but it's saying, no, this is real, man. This is real gaming. Which at the time of this game's release was actually a very unique premise. So anyways, we make sure to link souls with Kyle before he says this.
One more thing. Be careful with my body. It's the only one I've got.
Oh, don't worry, sir. I will make absolute 100% effort to keep you safe. Now, upon entering the game, he immediately gets jumped and killed.
I've been waiting for you.
Oops.
Now, this monster that just attacked you and tried to drain what little Irish spring was left on your body, instead runs away when these police robots show up.
You have been the victim of a violent attack. Go home.
Ah, I'm immersed already. Now, when you leave this alleyway, you're treated to this 3-minute cutscene that just goes through the streets, and these streets seem to have little to no variation, and in this cutscene it reuses the same shots, so that's a little bit concerning. But when I look through this intro, I get this prickly feeling on the back of my neck, almost as if I've played this style of game before. Why do I feel like that? Indeed, what I've shown you is not doctored footage. This is real. Now, if you were paying attention earlier, you'll see that I omitted the developer for this game, and that is to reveal to you that it was developed by Quantic Dream, the studio headed by David Cage. Now, for the uninitiated, who may not know who this individual is, let me just give you a quick rundown. Everything you need to know about him. It's the guy that made Indigo Prophecy, Heavy Rain,
The best way of tracking a predator is to be familiar with his behavior.
and most recently, Detroit Become Human.
28 stab wounds.
Now, all these games share the same theme of being more like movies that you mess with rather than actual games. And to be quite frank with you, this is what wanted to make me make this video. Not only is this the first ever David Cage game, but I would argue that this is one of his most unhinged works. And it's utterly insane to me that I've seen barely anyone even bother talking about it. Hi, this is Moon in the editing room. Okay, so apparently in my research for this game I found that it received a little bit of uptick in interest after the Omikron DLC was announced for COVID. And basically a lot of conservatives were talking about how David Cage predicted the government trying to control everyone. So, enjoy that fun fact, I guess. And with that, I have no more surprises to show you. None at all. Sorry, I'm popping to this music, so I'm a little scatterbrained. It's really good. I wonder who worked on this game soundtrack. You know what? Let's just move on for now. The beginning of this game isn't really all that crazy. You simply go home to this guy's apartment, only for his wife to appear and tell you that you and your partner have been investigating some recent murders.
4 days ago, you didn't come home from work. I called your office in security headquarters. They said that you and your partner, Dan, had gone out on an investigation and that they hadn't heard from you.
Why the fuck does every David Cage game start with policemen investigating a murder? This is a weird thing that like they all share. But you know what? Tangent aside, after this, you get to go. Unless you decide to go back to the bedroom. Because just because this is the beginning doesn't mean that this game doesn't have little nuggets of insanity already. Because you get to have the option of doing this sex scene / nightmare sequence with this guy's wife. I hope that's the last instance of something like that happening. Wait, what does this button do? God fucking damn it, David. Now, you essentially go around doing random shit for the earlier parts of the game, trying to investigate the murders, with two important side events happening. One, you being introduced to a character called Jenna, who's going to matter a little later on in this story. And then a mission where you have to go save a supermarket from being robbed. I say this mission is important because it reveals to you that this game also has a fucking FPS in it. I was blindsided when I saw this shit. Are you seeing this? And I got even more blindsided when I got to the end of the level and it turns into Tekken. Are you seeing this right now? Virtua Fighter, eat your heart out. So, to say the least, that was a surprise. Anyways, at some point, you find a lead that sends you to your dead partner's apartment. But before you do, you get a call from your wife after she had lunch with Mr. Cage.
Kale, you've got to come home. There's no time to explain. Come to the apartment right away. Please, you've got to come.
And so you go back to your apartment roof and you find your wife sitting there. Okay. So after you reenact an average day in Chris Brown's apartment, you are approached by this woman who proceeds to lore dump large parts of the story to you.
My name doesn't matter. I had you brought here because I have something important to tell you. I have come to warn you that your life is in terrible danger.
Oh, really? I didn't know that, and I didn't need to know that.
The demons are looking for you. They want your soul. You've already escaped from them several times. They're mad with rage.
And this is where I got hooked. The monster at the beginning was actually a demon, because the main antagonists of this game are a bunch of demons that are slowly trying to infiltrate the government, and they use suffering souls as their power source. So they created the video game of Omikron to lure players into this world and trap their souls.
The Omikron video game is a trap created by Astaroth himself. It's bait to attract the player's souls into our dimension.
And so after this bombshell is just thrust upon you, you're told to go get a power rod, which is basically just the magical MacGuffin that can hurt the demons, and then infiltrate the police chief's headquarters, because that holds the gate, which is the thing that led your soul into this world in the first place. So you do a bunch of random bullshit that doesn't really matter, then you go to hell.
Here you are, Nomad soul. The one who holds the fate of Omikron in his hand. Accept this modest gift. 3 interlinking rings. The first 2 will save your life. The third will bring you back here.
Let me explain to you what just happened. This game takes inspiration from Resident Evil, where you can only save at these specific stations, and you can save using rings that you find throughout the game, which means that it's a limited resource. However, at certain points, you will be given an autosave station so that you don't fuck yourself over. Except, that isn't what happens, because these autosave stations, every time you die, you will lose a ring and it'll teleport you to the very beginning of this section. And there are multiple points in this game where you can be presented with a situation that you can fail and then miss out on rings. So basically, this game is made in a way where the worse that you are doing, the harder the game is in the long run, because you're losing out on your fucking save states. So anyways, you enter this arena, you destroy the portal and kill the commander, and after this you escape through a pool that, I guess for whatever reason, was just connected to hell. And then you talk with Jenna, who turns out is part of a rebel organization called The Awakened. Now in order to meet up with The Awakened, you're gonna have to enter a new area. So let me just mosey on through this new area. Hey man, how's it going? Oh. We're dead. Why is the end screen not happening? And here you thought it was over. Not only does this game have first-person shooter and 3D fighting game mechanics, but it also gives you the reincarnation ability, an ability that allows you to take over the bodies of specific NPCs. I don't know why it's called the reincarnation, but I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say it was to justify the senior designer saying that this was the world's first Buddhist video game. Now, as I said, you can't use this ability on every NPC in the game. it only happens with specific NPCs, and at some points you're going to have to use it to progress, or it happens if you die in a specific situation. Now, after violating laws against both mind and spirit, you go over to Janpur to meet with the Awakened. And I am now realizing that I've not told you about the regime that the city apparently is under that doesn't really matter at all, and I think you're starting to see a pattern here. But we'll talk about that later. Anyways, we get told that in order to find out how to stop the demons from eating our soul like it's a McDonald's Happy Meal, we're gonna have to talk to Boz, the guy who's the leader of the Awakened. But, of course, we're gonna have to do some random tasks for them that serve no other purpose than to pad the runtime. So we blow up a bridge and then air out some propaganda. Now, I'm just gonna tell you, the propaganda mission is one of the worst ones in this game. First of all, because the gameplay sucks. You see, the FPS mode manages to make your character feel as if you're both heavy and floaty at the same time, because your character moves as if he's on ice skates, but the literal millisecond your finger comes off the key, your character comes to a complete stop. And the fighting game aspect of this game also kinda sucks. It's not as bad because you could just spam the same sweep kick move and cheese 90% of the fights in this game, but the FPS parts of this game don't have anything like that. So you're consistently put in these mazes that are confusing to navigate with enemies that can constantly hit you, with no way to regenerate other than health packs on the level. And this one is the worst maze out of the bunch, and it took me 30 minutes to just put up the propaganda message.
Wake up, people of Omikron.
Oh yeah, not only did David Bowie make a lot of the soundtracks for this game, he also plays as the leader of the Awakened, and he's honestly one of the better characters. And I'm also gonna say that the soundtrack is definitely the best part of this game. You see, the art direction is really bland, because a lot of what you're seeing feels like it's just a rip-off of other sci-fi properties at the time, and the technical aspect of the game is horrible to an extent that you can't ignore it. However, what little atmosphere that this game has is absolutely carried by the tracks that David Bowie brings to the table. Now, after completing these tasks, you get to go talk to Mr. Bowie himself, where he says that basically, the demon's leader Astaroth is looking to gain enough souls to both take over Omikron and then invade the real world. No one knows how to kill him, but Boz points us to a library that might have information on how to kill him. Now, why does the leader of an entire group of rebels, whose entire purpose for existing is to fight against the demons, just now telling us about this information so that we could go get it, instead of telling one of his subordinates many years ago? Why is he talking about how this is going to save my soul, and also not the fact that it's probably going to help out the planet a great big deal? Shut up, don't worry about it. Actually, this is a good point to bring up the game's biggest problem, that being this game's writing and story are god-awful. For example, the Awakened are a group of rebels that are trying to stop the demons from taking over the government.
The inhabitants of Omikron are ignorant of the existence of the demons. They never show themselves in broad daylight. Even the government denies their existence. We, the Awakened, are the only ones who can fight them.
But they're also fighting the government for being a dictatorship.
We are a secret caste who fight the demons and the dictator Reshev's corrupt power system. We are the
But parts of the government are already under the demons' control. They don't clearly state this, and it kind of melds into fighting the government and fighting the demons, but making sure the demons don't get into the government. It's just this massive mess of a story. I think a large part of why this story is so confusing is because they'll constantly introduce plot elements that go nowhere. For example, near the beginning, they make mention of these massive corporations that make everything in Omikron and hold a massive amount of power, to the point that they all have their own personal armies. So when you hear this makes you assume they're gonna do something in the story. But they don't ever do. They never show up, and they don't do anything to hinder our progress. Another example, we have this chief of security, the guy in charge of all the police in Omikron, who you meet once and then never gets brought up again. However, I think the best example of this is with Reshev, a character who is extremely important due to being the leader/dictator of Omikron, where they keep mentioning his name, and they keep talking about how he's the dictator.
Wake up, people of Omikron. Reshev and his corrupt government are lulling you to sleep in order to control you better.
Legatee Reshev, an iron fist in a silk glove. He is a violent and bloodthirsty dictator and will stop at nothing in order to increase his wealth.
Which leads me to believe that we're going to talk to him, perhaps even assassinate him. At a bare minimum, I thought we would meet him, which you do, 3 minutes before the end credits arrive, after he is shot and killed by the rebels off screen.
You serious?
The game's artificiality is especially apparent because the game constantly reminds you as you play it that while you're playing a video game, this is a real world with real people. But the writing and the very mechanics of the game make it just not work, especially with the reincarnation mechanic, because a mechanic that is primarily centered around taking other people's bodies, other people that the game tells you have their own lives and motivations, and it never once gets brought up about, you know, should you be doing this? And honestly, this question about using other people's bodies without their permission makes sense why it doesn't get answered, because this is the first time David Cage ignored this question, but it's not going to be the last. It all kind of just coalesces into this story that so desperately tries to convince you of its reality, but fails in nearly every way. And this failure is especially apparent when you compare this game to its contemporaries. Now, you may be wondering where the story goes after I talk to Boz, and now, this is a curveball. I don't know if you guys were expecting this. It turns out there's a magic sword that can kill the Demon Lord. So, after you go get it from this guy that just falls over dead, you pick it up, which shows off your arthritis, and then you go off to kill Astaroth, where before he fights you, he says that he was actually in control of the government for hundreds of years, and was also the same guy that owned all of those corporations that never showed up or did anything, and at this point, I'm just done with it, and I pull out my gun to kill Satan. I've already made mention of how unpleasant the FPS sections in this game can be. However, this boss fight is legitimately one of the worst FPS boss fights that I've ever had to play in my life. Because not only do you have to deal with the base controls being clunky and not good, but you can only damage the boss through this small point on his back. However, throughout the fight, the lower his health gets, the higher his animation speed, and the higher his attack damage gets. They didn't do this in a way that feels intentioned or well designed, but more like you're playing an RPG and you're fucking with the slider. It was a legitimately painful experience, and thankfully, it didn't take me that long, just, man, how many tries was it again? Oh yeah, 42 times! So after you give the demon enough back shots, he falls over at some point, at which you pull out your sword and then stab it in his head, sealing him away forever, I think. You then go and shut down the supercomputer that was in charge of the entire city. Yes, this was a character, and his absence within this video should tell you all you need to know about him. And after that, you then meet up with the Awakened, and you find out that while you were killing the guy that looks like he has salt flats for skin, they toppled the government while you were gone. And so, after meeting them again, they go do the whole hustle bustle. Aw man, thanks for saving us. You're pretty awesome. You can go now. You won. And after that, the game's over. Now, while this was an utter travesty of a video game, I'm still kind of endlessly fascinated by it. Firstly, because it's, ironically, the most video game David Cage has ever made. 'Cause yeah, the gameplay that's in it is horrible. But when you compare it to all of his other works, none of them have any gameplay in them at all, really. Because they're all more like movies that are on rails that you occasionally get to choose the direction of which they go in. And of course, there's also the fact that, you know, while it doesn't happen all the time, seeing how the plot evolves throughout the game is just entertaining through how fucking insane it gets out of nowhere.
I hear you, Morgan. Ask your question.
However, the biggest draw to me is that even though this is his very first video game, you can see the seeds that David Cage planted and how he makes those seeds mature and grow in the future. You see how the core way he makes all of his games was first made, and while I really don't like the style of game he makes, it's kind of just cool seeing how his vision for these kinds of games can be traced all the way back to his first ever project. Now, after spending so much time dissecting and analyzing this game, and really delving deep into its mechanics, writing, plot, and lore, one last question remains. Should you play Omikron, the Nomad? No.